I've spent the last few weeks trying to fix every comfort issue I had with the Pimax Dream Air, and after a lot of failed prints, bad ideas, and more trial and error than I'd like to admit, I finally ended up with a setup that's dramatically more comfortable than stock, and I'll give you everything you need to do it too. The first thing I tackled was the facial interface. The stock one isn't terrible, but it was one of the weakest parts of the headset for me. I wanted something softer, more comfortable, and that would ideally get my eyes a little closer to the lenses for a bit more field of view. So I went looking for a 3D printed replacement. My first attempt looked promising. It was supposedly designed for the Dream Air, so I printed it, pulled the metal mounting frame out of the stock interface, and started putting everything together. The problem? None of the screw holes lined up. Not slightly off, completely wrong. I spent way too long trying to bend the frame, rotate it, and convince myself I was doing something stupid before eventually getting so annoyed that I literally snapped the thing in half and threw it away. So that was a productive afternoon. Thankfully, the next design I found, made by ZeeFlyBoy, actually worked. I'll link it below for you. Everything lined up perfectly, installation was straightforward, and as a bonus, it also opens up the access to the top USB-C port, which is completely blocked by the stock interface and is required for what we're about to do later. For the padding, I reused an old studio form foam pad that I had lying around and attached it with Velcro. The difference was immediate. The foam is much softer, pressure is distributed more evenly across my face, and because my eyes sit closer to the lenses, you get a noticeable increase in field of view. It's not a massive jump, but it's definitely one of those things you notice the moment you put the headset on. Ventilation is still great, comfort is significantly better, and honestly, I haven't really found a downside yet. But compared to the facial interface, the head strap ended up being a much bigger project. My first idea was actually pretty simple. Quest 3 straps are everywhere. They're easy to get, relatively cheap, and I already had several lying around, so I figure I'd just make an adapter and call it a day. The Dream Air stock strap attaches using a small metal mounting piece, so I designed an adapter that reuses that mechanism while also allowing the Quest 3 straps to snap on. And technically, it worked. I tested it with the stock Quest strap, the Elite strap, a Kiwi strap, and even a Bobo VR one. The adapter did exactly what it was supposed to do. The problem was that actually wearing it was awful. Because of the way the Dream Air side stems are positioned, tightening the Quest straps would push those stems inwards and straight into my temples. The tighter you made the headset, the worse it got. At first I thought maybe I'd put the attachment point in the wrong place, so I redesigned the adapter, moved everything further back, printed another version, and tested it again. Same problem. At that point I had to admit defeat. The adapter wasn't the issue, the geometry of the headset just wasn't a good match for Quest 3 straps. Now I did see some people using the Bobo VR S3 strap without any adapter at all, by just sliding the Dream Air stems into the clips of the strap, but it stretches the connection point of the stems to the point that I'm worried. And also, the head strap itself is heavier than the actual headset, so it actually adds a lot of weight. At this point I could have just gone back to the stock strap. Instead, I accidentally turned this into a multi-week engineering project. I started looking at alternatives and eventually landed on the Big Screen Beyond audio strap. I already had one, it was designed for a tiny lightweight headset, and on paper it seemed like a much better fit for the Dream Air. Unfortunately, that was where the real suffering began. I was able to reuse part of the Quest adapter design, but I still had to redesign the mounting system for the Beyond strap itself. And from there it became an endless cycle of printing, testing, and immediately discovering a new problem. Some versions were too loose, some of them were so tight that I needed a box cutter to remove the strap, others just simply snapped. Every time I thought I was done, another issue appeared. And because every test meant waiting hours for another print, progress was really slow. Then, just when I thought I was finally finished, I realized the design actually couldn't even be printed properly without supports, which turned into an entirely new problem. So I redesigned the whole thing as a two-piece system that could print cleanly without supports, went through even more iterations, and eventually arrived at version 8. Or version 9. Honestly, I lost count. But eventually I put the final version on the headset, tightened it down, and immediately I knew I was done. This was the one. For the first time, the comfort finally matched the rest of the headset. It was easier to adjust, easier to put on and take off, more comfortable, and after weeks of failed prints and redesigns, it finally felt finished. And if you're using the Beyond audio strap specifically, there's actually another bonus as well. The audio sounds fantastic on the Dream Air. In fact, I think it even sounds better here than it does on the actual Beyond itself. The only catch is that you'll need a short, flexible USB-C extension cable because the built-in cable on the audio strap doesn't quite reach the Dream Air's USB-C port. Thankfully, once that's connected, everything works perfectly. And if you want to print the adapter yourself, you don't actually need any extra hardware. Just reuse the original metal mounting piece and screws from the stock strap, print the adapter, and you're good to go. I'll have all the files linked below completely free. And while I was already designing things, I also printed a headset holder for my sim rig. Completely unnecessary, but surprisingly useful. At this point, the Dream Air honestly feels like a completely different headset than the one I started with weeks ago. The visuals were already incredible, now the comfort finally feels worthy of them. So if you want to try any of these mods yourself, all the files are linked below, and if you still haven't bought your Dream Air or Dream Air SE, you can use the code VRMANCAVE for a discount at checkout, which also helps support the channel at no extra cost to you. And if you end up improving any of these 3D designs, definitely let me know, because there's a good chance your version will be better than mine. If you found this video useful, a like and subscribe would be hugely appreciated, and as always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers, guys!